Hello and welcome, it's Neil Dougan here. We're looking at Module 13, which is on the subject of the microbiome. And the microbiome describes the entire living entities which are associated with our body. So we talk about our own cells as being part of the microbiome, but also all of the viruses, bacteria, fungi and parasites which are also co-located with us. So they're living within us, on our skin, over all of our membranes, inside our cells, between the cells, and generally speaking everywhere that you can imagine within your body. So the great debate around the microbiome relates to whether evolution is actually driven by competition and in its alternative form, which I'm certainly proposing here within TRIM, is that evolution is predominantly actually driven by cooperation and collaboration, and particularly going forward from where we are as humans, our future evolution is pitched much more at collaboration and cooperation than it is in terms of competition. So I want to examine, to begin with, I want to examine this question of competition and versus collaboration, cooperation, and we're going to identify how that relates to what's happening with the microbiome, but also how it relates to the ongoing future development of ourselves individually. So this is, in other words, our individual progress, and additionally actually humans as a species. So how we as a species are, have an opportunity for evolution, and how cooperation and collaboration can form part of that forward progress. Or, in my opinion, should we fall ever increasingly towards the what I consider to be a malaise of competition, then quite what that means actually in terms of our evolution as well. So I want to cover off all of those things. So firstly, let's actually begin this process by examining the role of competition, because competition does exist, and we want to examine the role of competition in terms of an evolutionary principle. So we all understand and know the concept of evolution, the theory of evolution as we've been taught it in school, and we also understand and have been aware of various creationist views. So in other words, this idea that our existence is the result of some sort of creative influence, and indeed in TRIM we have take a view that there is an evolutionary process, but there is also a creationary process going on here as well. So if we consider this from an evolutionary, the theory of evolution perspective, then the idea is that it is the survival of the fittest. That term was coined in the Darwinian period, and this whole idea that the fittest survive and they go on to reproduce is a very persistent concept within our modern science. And when you actually look at the opportunity for for weaker examples within the community to be weeded out so that the stronger examples can actually flourish, then there's a certain logic associated with the concept of the survival of the fittest. However, when you get to the stage of the complexity of our organisms, then being only the fittest means that you actually have to be cooperating, collaborating at a very, very high level. So let's examine then how that relates to the microbiome. So we are this community of viruses and fungi and parasites and our own cells, bacteria as well, of course. And when you actually look at the numbers, the sheer numbers that we're talking about here, 1,000 trillion viruses, for example, that's an absolutely enormous number of viruses that are existing within our body, very, very happily in there, all contributing to what's going on. Very, very few of them actually causing any sort of trouble at all. Like, it's a minuscule amount, a minuscule proportion that are causing any sort of trouble within the body. When you look at that, so we consider this organism, so we're talking about my human body here at the moment, and the complexity is such that there is this enormous number of organisms actually all in here working together for me to be the fittest for me to actually be the fittest, so this we're talking about survival of the fittest here, this Darwinian principle, for me to be the fittest, I have to have all of these entities as cooperating and as collaborating and all moving towards the same goal as much as possible. So the fittest individual in this case is actually the individual who is not competing and fighting, but the individual that is collaborating and cooperating to an extraordinarily high extent. And of course the contrary situation occurs whenever we have disease. So when we have any of these aspects actually fighting one another, so it could be our immune system fighting with a particular organism, whether it be a virus or a bacteria or a parasite, a fungus even, if our immune system is fighting with it, then the outcome of it is disease. So nearly all disease is actually a result of this kind of conflict, this kind of fighting that's actually going on. And all of the stuff that we're talking about is happening at multiple levels within our organisation. So when we're talking about the activity of a given bacteria, or say we're talking about the activity of an aspect of our immune system or the whole immune system, then it is all responding to the way that conflict or cooperation are prevailing. So if we have a lot of conflict going on, well then the immune system is behaving in one way. If we have a lot of collaboration, cooperation, harmony, happiness, joy going on, then the immune system will behave in a completely different way. And it's not only the immune system that is this responsible to the actual high level consciousness that's going on, but every aspect of our being is responding to the emotional climate, to our belief systems, to our culture, to our memories. All of these things are impacting on every single layer of every high level system within our organism, but it's also impacting on the functioning and behaviour and choices that are being made right down to the level of the virus. So the virus will make different decisions dependent on the emotional climate that's going on, to the belief systems, to the memories, to the behaviours. On all of these levels, the organism is actually being impacted upon by the high level consciousness issues. So of course within TRIM what we're doing is we're actually working at all this unconscious level, so all of the audio material that you have is full of suggestions for how everything can be operating at a much more collaborative, much more cooperative level within the unconscious scale of it. And then with the work that we're doing with the webinars and workshops and this type of thing, we're bringing this right up into the conscious mind, so that the conscious mind can be involved in processes around making new decisions. So you can make a choice to be far more collaborative, far more cooperative. One of the wonderful things that comes out of this collaborative, cooperative approach is that we can have the wisdom of the community. Now, with the prevailing idea that it's all competition, we've got to fight off and beat off and destroy and be the top dog in every circumstance, then there's no community, there is no us, there's no sense of we all together pulling in the same sort of direction. In that situation you are just there on your own. But in this collaborative model that we're talking about, here I am, I have 1,000 trillion viruses within me, I have 70 trillion bacteria, I have however many viruses, how many parasites within the shape of my body. How wonderful to be able to say that that is my community. This community of over 1,000 trillion individuals is able to join together and have a collective wisdom which will take me forward in terms of my personal evolution. We talked also earlier there about the connection between the evolution of an individual and the evolution of, say for example, the human species, and by extension we can see the example that if we have 8 billion people on the planet at the moment, each of them with 1,000 trillion entities or more making them up, well, the opportunities for a collective wisdom to come out of that is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. So to have this level of collaboration and cooperation that we're talking about being the predominant mode of operation, if you like, within our beings, we have to have a situation of complete openness with our communication. And it may sound very simple for me to say, but for communication to exist, there has to be somebody offering some information, or something offering information, and something receiving information. So there are both sides of this process. There's something giving some information, there's something receiving the information. And we've been talking recently in some webinars around the subject of love, and of course in love we have the receiving and giving process in here. So in both aspects, receiving and giving, we actually have love as an important component. So, you know, that, as I said, that might sound very simple, but when you're talking about a community of the scale that we have within, you know, the shape of my body, then this process of being able to listen. So here I am, you know, Neil Dougan sitting here, and can I listen to the message of a single virus? So a single virus is a part of this community. Can I listen to that virus? Or at least can I listen to the messages that are coming from that particular variety of virus? So, you know, however many billions or trillions of a single species of virus or genus or you know, strain, or however you want to describe these things. So they are strains as we talk about them. But the particular type of virus, can I actually listen to that particular type of virus, no matter how many of them there are within my body? So that question is the question that needs to be managed, and within TRIM we're actually addressing that very problem in the unconscious, and also bringing that up for you into the conscious mind process as well, so that you can use all of your abilities to actually hear or to sense or to be aware of the needs and the information and the communication that is coming from every other kind of being that exists within you. Okay, so lastly what I want to talk about in terms of the sort of whole evolutionary process and what's going on here is that it involves change. So the issue of evolution is that the community or the individual or the single entity begins in one place and goes to another place. And in the case of our brethren who are living within us, say the virus is a particular virus, well, these viruses are being created continuously. So they're actually being manufactured within our own cells continuously. We're breathing them in, we're eating them in. Generally speaking, these viruses are continually being created, or being born, or however you want to actually describe that process. Now, equally, they're all dying off. So there's mass carnage going on inside my body at the moment of viruses, of bacteria. There are billions of bacteria dying every minute or second, or however these things get measured, but it's enormous numbers. So there's complete carnage going on with all of these entities within our body. My question to you is, should we mourn the passing of a single virus? Indeed, should we mourn the passing of the individual? So, you know, I call myself the Immortality coach, and you know, this raises a very interesting question, because as much as physical immortality is becoming an elective process, it's right here, it's a present opportunity for us to be physically immortal. Nonetheless, there is this passing going on continuously. Cells are being created and dying continuously. The bacteria are being created and dying continuously. So there is this process between life and death, and you know, should we be concerned about, you know, the passing of me as a collective? So is it an issue for mourning for me to die, or for somebody else that I know to die? Or, you know, should we be seeing it as part of a continuous evolutionary process? So I just leave you with those questions. They're great philosophical questions to consider. Right, I hope you found this video useful on the subject of the philosophy of the microbiome. As you can tell from this video, the way I'm approaching it is that we must consider our community. we must consider the opportunities for collaboration and cooperation. So thanks for watching, and look out for the future videos. Thank you.